Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. My fourth near-death encounter occurred on December 17, 2017 at 8:45 a.m. I had been hospitalized the day before for having a seizure and was under 24-hour surveillance. I had stopped breathing on the morning of the 17th due to a severe reaction to certain seizure medication. I had fallen asleep in my hospital bed before anybody had been informed of my condition when I felt my spirit lift up from my body. I ascended through the ceiling, through the roof, into the sky, and into the great dark universe. I felt cocooned or encased in what felt like a warm, soft, thick black velvet blanket. I could see myself, both inside and outside of this lovely shawl, and I felt so warm, safe, protected, and truly loved. There was a presence with me, in me, and all around me, but I couldn't see who it was with my visual eyes. I felt God was there with me, even if I couldn't see. I was curled in a fetal position with this velvet encasement and felt no fear or worry. It seemed like I was back in my mother's womb as a baby. I could see magnificent stars and planets all about me as I hung there suspended, not moving up, down, or sideways. The twinkling lights piqued my interest and delight, but I found I was more at ease inside the warm, velvety blanket that covered me. I had no sense of time. I seemed to be there for an eternity. I felt as if I was waiting for something as I hung there suspended among the sky. It was tranquil, calm, and quiet, and the black velvet was soft and comfortable. Then it felt as though a vacuum was sucking me down, pushing me down, back into my body. Then I heard a lot of noise, and when I opened my eyes, the light in the room were so bright that they hurt my eyes. There were so many people shouting my name and talking in my room that I thought my ears would burst. The agony was excruciating. I was completely perplexed. I had no notion what had just occurred to me. The doctor stood next to my bed as numerous nurses wandered around the room, and then I noticed my husband, who looked terrified, waiting at the door. I was wearing a non-breathing oxygen mask and had several IVs in my arms. The nurses stayed by my side for quite some time to keep an eye on my breathing. It wasn't until that I learned how serious things had become. I had perished from acute respiratory acidosis, often known as hypoventilation. Every encounter is unique, and this one stood out from the rest. Despite the fact that I'm still attempting to make sense of it all and integrate it into my life, I've come to a few conclusions. Because I had a fear of the vacuum, I believe God was showing me that it's not a place to be afraid. He was the loving presence I felt with me, in me, and all around me. God had my back. In addition, I've been dealing with depression lately as a result of health concerns, family issues, and feeling completely overwhelmed. I know in my heart that I was placed in this loving, holding place to allow my spirit to rest. I knew I had to choose whether to stay or go, and if God hadn't merely held me for a few moments, I would have made a quick decision. The date was November 3, 2016. I'd been in the hospital emergency room for several hours in agonizing agony and nausea owing to a bowel obstruction caused by adhesions choking the small intestine. Following multiple tests, the surgeon arranged immediate emergency surgery. I was in the operating room within an hour. My soul left my body and floated above the operation table during the surgery. I could see physicians and nurses examining me. This lasted what looked like barely a minute or two. I was suddenly engulfed by a lovely rainbow-colored light. I started to feel like I was traveling extremely quickly through this light. Then I discovered myself in heaven. I recognized heaven since I'd seen everything there in a prior NDE. Only this time, I was standing near to the magnificent city's golden wall. The wall was extraordinarily tall, sturdy, and composed of pure gold. I had an overwhelming sense of love and tranquility that permeated every cell in my body. There was a taste of absolute happiness. As I stood there, barely feet from the city's entrance, I was overcome with wonder. Just beyond the city walls, I could hear what sounded like a celebration or party. The air was crisp and fragrant, pure and clean. It was fragrant with wild flowers, which danced in the warm silken breeze that kissed my son. The colors were brilliant and beautiful. The sky was the most beautiful blue, reminding me of a beautiful spring day. The sky was illuminated by a lovely glow. The light shone as brightly as the sun. Despite the fact that there was no sun in the sky, the lights lighted everything, emitting a magnificent golden glow. I knew the light was coming from God's heart. I saw a gorgeous, lush green meadow full of wild flowers of every hue as I stood next to the golden wall. Rich, brilliant pinks, purples, yellows, reds, violets, and blues were used to color the wild flowers. They were scattered in front of me, stretching from the garden where I'd been during my previous near-death experience. This was toward the city, where I was now standing. I noticed an old fieldstone wall midway between the garden and the Golden City, with pink roses blooming up and over it. A tiny brown and white beagle dog wiggled at my feet, requesting my attention as I stood next to the stunning golden wall. He barked and wiggled all over with delight as I knelt down to pet him, allowing me to rub his soft little puppy belly. As I continued to stroke his tummy and play with him, I noticed hundreds of people pouring out of the lovely garden and beginning to walk across the thick grass and wild flowers of the meadow. Every person I saw was accompanied by an angel. The angels were taller and more lighted than the people, clad in light blue and white robes. The people walking with their angels were laughing and conversing happily. I could definitely hear everyone's talks from where I was standing. People from many walks of life were there, including men, women, and children of various ethnicities and ages. 2 males strolled into my view as people passed me and proceeded to enter the city. I knew the younger of the 2 from photographs I'd seen. These photographs belonged to his mother, a friend of mine. He passed just a few years previously. This younger man was with an older gentleman I identified as his father. I smiled at the 2 men as they passed by and said, "I know you." They both grinned at me and continued strolling towards the magnificent city's entrance. I had no idea how long this parade lasted because time seemed to stop. Divine love seemed to flood every pore in my body as I stood there. I was told that I had to return, that it wasn't my time yet, and that I had to inform this man's wife that he and his son were together and that he was okay. I saw a majestic edifice with columns and archways made of the finest alabaster. The marble floor was polished to a glass-like brilliance. The building had 2 massive ornamental doors, one at the front and one at the back. Each entrance was guarded by an angel who possessed a key. Nobody could get in unless the angels let you in by unlocking the door with these special keys. The angels were dressed in ivory garments with gold sashes that ran from one shoulder to their waist. I was allowed inside the entrance, and once inside, I noticed that there was nothing inside but a giant podium and a massive golden book sat on this grand stand. As I approached the stand and examined the book, I noticed that it was made of pure gold and seemed to fill the entire room with a golden radiance. The interior paper was made of a material I'd never seen before. It wasn't regular paper, but rather a densely woven cloth. The book looked to have life spilling from every fiber of its existence. It was a living book. I'm not sure which page of the book was open. The lettering was in gold and in a language I'd never heard of before. It appeared to be symbols, possibly in ancient writing. The angel that let me in was with me, still holding his key, but he didn't say anything. He only glanced forward, maintaining watch while I tried to figure out what the ancient words written down before me meant. Since no answers were arriving, the only conclusion I could draw was that the book was not open to the page of my life, and hence I couldn't read the words. When it was time for me to leave, the angel led me out of the sacred room and into the building's courtyard. To read from the book of life is a gift, he added simply. The angel then left, returning to his place at the front door. At the time, I was imbued with divine understanding that reading the holy book with pendulums, computer programs, and cards was incorrect. It must be read from the heart. I awoke in my body, still hooked up to many machines, with the nurse standing at my bedside. I received a note from another buddy later that day, when I was healthy enough to be transported to my room. She informed me that the widow, whose kid had died some time before, had lost her husband while I was in surgery.